Yo, 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 what's going on, my YouTube fam? Man, as we all know, it's definitely not a good morning in America. That's for sure, especially after the tragic event that inspired yesterday in Uvalde, Texas. Let a few people come on in, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Evil do exist, you guys. Evil does exist.
Copyright disclaimer. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor
Our YouTube fam. So on that note, I must say, anything said about any person or persons in this content are not proven facts. Information in this content is based off of opinions and allegations. Allegedly. You know the internet's favorite word, allegedly. Allegedly. Well, let's get it.
Good morning, Michelle Jones, Rome's mother. Like I said, you guys, man, it's a tough morning for all of America, especially for those that's truly affected by this event that took place in Texas, man. So, I went live last night and talked about it a little bit. I was at work all day and, I just wanted to come home and figure out, what was going on. Because, of course, it's a tragic event, man, especially with kids. So, kind of woke up, on the same thing, which it was like a worse feeling this morning, just seeing the pictures of the kids and watching, the news clips and just seeing just everybody affected by it, seeing the families, the parents, the law enforcement, just the residents of the city. Um, I come from a small city myself, so I could just imagine, man. Um, Definitely a horrible situation, but yeah, this morning I think I was more affected this morning, like sleeping on it and just seeing more different stuff about it and actually just seeing the pictures, man. And man, I seen this one picture with the father and his daughter, and like, man, his daughter was 10 years old, which is the same age as one of my daughters. And man, that's it. Just really just hurt. I was damn near in tears this morning, man. It's very sad. I was watching it with my mother before work. I'm actually headed to work right now, leaving California City, but definitely hit a lot harder this morning, man. So, but from this channel, we're gonna send them prayers, man, to Texas. Everybody affected by it. Prayers for America, in general. Yo, day one, what's going on? Sweet Pea, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Well, it's morning time here, like 9:40. But good afternoon on your end. Peace and blessings. At the end of the day, I hope everybody still have a blessed day after, it's gonna be hard for everybody, especially if you're out there and you have a heart and you care. But it's just crazy, like, because evil, it just really does exist, man, in all types of forms, and it can happen at any moment. Things like this, like you would never expect this to happen. You send your kids to school to get education, want them to learn, and then you got 2 more days left to summer vacation. The kids is waiting on it. Bad situation. So I was watching, I think it was News Nation, which I'm gonna play it in the background. So we're gonna go ahead and listen to this, and then we're gonna talk about it. Because it was a few things that I was kind of didn't make no sense. Well, didn't make no sense, but was Then it's sit right. We're gonna talk about that too. Sweet Pea is homeschool and the safety of our children going to school, like, because that's very important, man. First we were just going through with the, the C-19 and all that stuff, and them wanting to, and put that in our kids, and then this, and then the scary part is one of the news clips that I played last night basically stated that it's gonna get worse, like it's gonna be more, which is kind of crazy how somebody can predict that, but it just makes you think, like, especially sending your kids to school and you got the news saying that it's not over with. I don't know how they know that, but it's just crazy that they feel that way, that they're saying it. Which I guess is, we just had the shooting in Buffalo, and I guess it was one in California at a church. I didn't really know about. Well, I knew about the Buffalo one, but I didn't know about the one in California until last night. Hey, Carol, how you doing? Crazy, 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 man. All them innocent people. I just don't understand. I don't think none of us gonna understand ever why somebody would do something like that. But what I wanted to get into was I want to it sounded like the news said that he was already, they was already on a lookout for the boy after he killed his grandmother. So him crashing his vehicle, I don't know if he was in a pursuit by law enforcement and crash, which wouldn't quite make no sense because is how did he still end up in the school if law enforcement was chasing him? But I don't know if that's true or not because like they kind of stated something, but wasn't very transparent on the pursuit part. As far as him crashing a vehicle and if law enforcement was chasing him or not. So maybe you guys may know a little bit of information on that. Was he actually in a pursuit by law enforcement when he crashed into that ditch? And then another thing that tripped me out was the witness that stated that he seen the boy hop off the fence. I mean, hop over the fence with the guns and enter the school, which I know is a tough situation. Um, but you would think, man, think somebody would take some type of action if they was to see somebody hopping a schoolyard fence with assault rifles. So yeah, that's some things that I just noticed last night. But I'm gonna go ahead and play this in the background. We're just gonna go ahead and listen. This is from News Nation. Shout out to News Nation, man. They came out. And, they came out here for the boys, and they did a report on the boys. So shout out to them, man.
Joining us tonight, I'm Marty Hughes here with Leland Bitter. We're going to take you through the next hour on what is a sad and somber and just downright terrible day. Images and details continue to emerge from Uvalde, Texas. At this hour, teen killed today. Evil has come to our nation once again in a senseless act. It is believed that an 18-year-old named Salvador Ramos, at some point during this rampage today, police say he shot his grandmother. And then he came to Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, and he entered into a shootout with authorities before killing all of those children. He was shot and killed by the police who came to help. 3 people tonight are in critical condition, 2 10-year-old girls and also a 66-year-old woman. And President Biden addressed the nation tonight about an hour after landing back in the U.S. after a trip to Asia. And here's what he had to say.
To lose a child is like having a piece of your soul ripped away. there's a hollowness in your chest. You feel like you're being sucked into it and never going to be able to get out. Suffocating. And it's never quite the same. So tonight, I ask the nation to pray for them. May God bless the loss of innocent life on this sad day. And may the Lord renew the brokenhearted, save those crushed in spirit, because they're going to need a lot of help.
And he would know. And there's two roles the president plays. He is the commander-in-chief at times. He is the comforter-in-chief. And having covered a lot of these situations, been at the White House for these speeches, I've never seen a president with that kind of emotion about a situation like this. You could hear it in his voice. You could see it in a way that we really don't see President Biden emote very often, if ever. And it's because he's experienced this loss, right? He knows what it is like to lose a young child, because he did in a car accident back in the 1970s, lost his wife, and then lost a son not too long ago, Beau Biden. And you could hear in his voice that he knew what these families are going through tonight in a way, thankfully, that most people do not, because most do not lose children. And he is able to connect in that way, in a way I think all of us are have reason to spend a little bit of time tonight thinking about those parents and how they're feeling.
Yeah, the president spoke from the heart. He spoke as a president, he spoke as a leader, and he may have been reading a script, but it sure as heck didn't sound like it. Yeah. He was speaking as a father who's been through it, who has lived it, and it was heartfelt, it was emotional, it was tragic. And he leaned on his faith, which I think a lot of people tonight are doing, whether you're directly involved, the many families who will forever be changed by this tragic event, or the rest of us who are just trying to understand yet again another senseless act. I still remember the day that we learned of what had happened at Sandy Hook. And I said to you earlier, I felt like my heart like went up into my throat and I lost my breath. And I had the same feeling today. It doesn't make any sense. And the investigation will now begin into what happened, and the process, which will be meticulous and delicate and emotional for the investigators, is underway. But we will likely not have the answers that everyone so desires. But the fact is, 19 children were killed today. 2 of their teachers, 2 law enforcement officers were shot, and there are others who were injured and who may or may not survive. And then there were kids and staff members inside that school who watched it all. And I think of them tonight and the countless others who were nearby.
Yeah, the world is forever changed. You said we may never have the answers. And in so many of these shootings, we really don't, because it is pure evil. And Robert Sherman, who we're going to get to in a minute, down in Uvalde, town of 16,000. So everybody knows everybody. Most are related or know somebody now who has lost a child. Great point he made, which is that we don't even know what questions and what policies to discuss and debate, because we don't know what happened. This was the president, though, talking about how allowing kids to buy weapons is wrong earlier.
So we have to ask, when in God's name are we going to stand up to the gun lobby? When in God's name we do what we all know in our gut needs to be done? I am sick and tired of it. We have to act. And don't tell me we can't have an impact on this carnage. The idea that an 18-year-old kid can walk into a gun store and buy 2 assault weapons is just wrong. What in God's name do you need assault weapon for except to kill someone? It's just sick.
And the first part of the speech that we talked about was so incredible, and it brought America together in a way probably that we haven't seen since the election. And there is going to be a lot of discussion tomorrow, and already is, about whether it was a huge missed opportunity to take this moment and just speak to the emotion of it, rather than the politics. As we know right now in Uvalde, there are a lot of families who still don't know if they're
You've got the emotion involved, and you've got the frustration that we're here again. And I think everybody feels that tonight, and that's probably what you saw. The legislative side of change that the president and others want to see. Was today the day for that? You know, you can debate that until the cows come home. Let's bring in Robert Sherman now, our correspondent on the ground in Uvalde. He has been there for the last several hours talking to witnesses, people who live nearby, and also investigators. Robert, there is quite a bit we've learned about the gunman tonight.
There is, and what Texas DPS has been able to tell us is that he's an 18-year-old, and the storyline of events that we've been told by law enforcement down here is that, as he reported just a few moments ago, shot his grandmother before coming to this school. There is still no update on her condition at this hour. Law enforcement was able to tell us that he was wearing some kind of body armor as he entered the building, was carrying a rifle, and they said that he was firing indiscriminately at anything in sight. The latest numbers that you all have reported on your show, we have just reconfirmed that with Texas DPS. No changes. 19 children killed, 2 teachers killed as well. I also want to make a point. You played the president's soundbite there talking about an 18-year-old being able to
Hold on real brief, you guys. Pay my respects, man. All right, y'all, my bad.
right. Clear, there is no evidence at this hour that that is what happened. That is one of the facts that you said, Leland, that we don't know. We don't know whose guns they were. We don't know how this person was able to get them. We don't know this person's mental condition. Switching gears to what we do know down here, we see the imagery unfolding, and it gets harder and harder to see. Just a few minutes ago, we saw a hearse driving from Robb Elementary School behind us, and it was departing. And of course, the connotations and the emotions that brings up is hard to see. We stopped over at that family reconnection center, which is over at the Civic Center, and you see these families, dozens of people who don't have any answers. They don't know what has happened to their child or their loved one who is inside the building, whomever they may be. They don't know that person's condition, haven't been able to reach out to them. You see the desperation for any glimmer of information, and there's just none to be provided. Some families crumpling into tears. It's hard to see. Texas DPS Lieutenant Chris Oliveras spoke with News Nation a little bit earlier today. He talked about that family reconnection process. Listen to what he had to say earlier this evening.
As far as who has not been notified, again, that's a separate entity. We do have local law enforcement working with those families. They know the area, they know the families. We do have to provide some type of closure to these families and try to identify what actually took place by obtaining evidence, looking at social media platforms, the history of the suspect to try to determine exactly what triggered this event.
And so that is what we have been seeing down here. It's this mad rush to try and reconnect these families and provide them with the information that they need. But still, the information coming in slowly, but law enforcement being very meticulous, very fastidious about what information they release hour by hour. Marty and Leland? It struck me during one of the news conferences, the chief of police, Robert, I don't know, you may have still been in transit for Uvalde, said, we're still trying to figure out what information and what we know to be able to tell the families. And it struck me as odd because I'd not heard something like that come up. And I think what he was trying to say is we don't know who all the victims are. And I don't know, Robert, if you've been able to confirm this, but there's a lot of reports that they are DNA testing families as they show up at that reconnection center, that if you've not found your child, please give us a DNA test because a number of these children are not recognizable. And it is overwhelmingly emotional. And Robert, I thought you made a great point, which is we go ahead.
That's crazy. He said some of the kids are not recognizable. That's not something that we've been able to confirm on the ground. So where they got to do DNA tests.
Who are they have no answers at this hour. That's still the latest that we've seen from the families that we've spoken with tonight. Yeah, Robert's got about a 5-second delay. So
hey, you guys, just to let you guys know, this is from yesterday. So it's not like the latest update. I believe the victim toll has went up to 21 people. So this video I'm playing right here is where it says, oh yeah, no, yeah, this is correct. 19 children and 2 teachers. And the grandma. So that would make it 22. I don't know why they're not paying 22. 19 children, 2 teachers, and a grandma.
And it will become personal. It is senseless. And to not have the answers and to not know if your child has been killed or is injured and you need to be by their side. These are 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders. I mean, these are babies, and they need their parents, and investigators are doing their best, delicate and emotional as the process is, to get it right, because the last thing you want to do is notify a family and be wrong.
Be wrong and not be able to deliver the remains of the child back. You and I were talking earlier, and I think it's an important point to make. There is a lot of discussion out there about the policies on both sides, whether or not something would have prevented this or what to do next or what.
Oh my God, I cannot imagine what these parents have to go through. I guess this isn't, when it first happened, the stages that they have to, hose that corridor. People be driving crazy out. People drive crazy everywhere. But anyways, when it first happened, and these parents, basically, it's like a waiting game to see if your child is one of the victims or not. And just imagine as a parent that you just got to sit there and wait to see if your child is okay. Then they was telling parents not to come up to the school, which I understand the protocol, whatever. But I don't see how that would work out. I know if something like that happens, then jeez, I wouldn't even know what I would do. Honestly, I can't say what I would and won't do because I haven't been in that position. But I'm pretty sure I would end up at that school if something like that happened. You tell me my kids is in there, and then you say don't come. Which, I'm not knocking them. I understand this protocol, what they do, but that's just a tough pill to swallow. Like,
Prevented in the have that conversation at times like this is because you don't have to deal with the emotion of what we're talking about right now. It's so much easier to make it political. Since we don't have the answers about what policies would have prevented this, we'll deal with the emotion and then the policies later. Phil Andrew, former FBI agent, national security contributor for News Nation, is with us now. Phil, take us through what law enforcement is doing. There's not a whodunit. There's not a how did they do it, because we saw. What are the questions left to answer, and how do you go about answering those, not from the victim side, from the suspect side?
They're going to continue to comb over this crime scene. And
honestly, you guys, I feel like this. It's like, what's the point of school nowadays? All this stuff is going on with schools in all type of different ways, right? It's like schools is one of the most dangerous spots to be right now. And I guess, I mean, because that's where most of the mass shootings happen, at schools or churches. But there's still a difference between a school and a church. It's the point I'm getting to is why even have school at this point in life? With we already is parents out there that's down with vaccinating their children. It's parents that's not with that, and that's already a battle in life right there. And I'm pretty sure it's gonna get more strict and more strict, and it's and then you gotta you gotta think about that, and then you gotta worry about stuff like this. If we sending our kids off into somebody else's hands, we're sending them to a dangerous spot. Really, in reality, when you really think about it, when we send our kids to public school, it's just like putting them out there with the wolves in the forest, like, you know what I mean? And that's the honest truth. Just think about it, y'all. On top of anything else that could happen, like kids being bullies and just all the bad stuff that happens at schools. But we really send our kids here. I wonder what happened over there. But yeah, I honestly think they should just eliminate school, homeschool, or not even homeschool, do it the virtual way, like we was doing during COVID. It's the same. It's the same thing. A little different, You don't really get to interact physically with people, but it's different this generation. I know, when my generation, parents wanted us to play sports, and it was good to be around people to socialize, so you be a people's person, and that's good in life. But nowadays it's a whole different story. Then another crazy thing is the protection that they have for these, what is it going to take for them to protect these schools? They sit there and act like money is the issue. We all know money is not the issue with the government. They could build prisons and keep people inside of prisons. Why not like that? I mean, but hey, if you got to build a school like a prison to protect the people, then why not? We know they're not in prison. Might look like a prison, but I'm just saying, like, why not build these schools like prisons? Or at least to that type of security to where nobody could get in or out. That would eliminate all the school shootings right there. People ain't getting out of prison. People ain't getting inside of prison either. So at the end of the day, I mean, it's ways to fix this fast. It should be taken more into consideration. That's how I feel. When it comes to these kids, we got to protect these kids, and also the people that work with the kids. Especially if we know that this type of stuff didn't happen before, and there's people out there that will do these senseless acts, and then they already saying that it's gonna happen again. It's only gonna get worse. So what are we gonna do, or what are they gonna do? There's only so much that we could do besides put our kids on homeschool. It's such a complicated situation about children who have never even been to school and such being thrown back into school after being virtual the first few years. Yeah, it's either that or, like I said, build the schools like prisons. And it's still like, if we have to go this extent, why are we sending our kids out there? They could get educated at home. That education is not worth my kid life. Risky, like it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't have to be like that with sending your kids to school. And look at the times we in. Look at the people that's doing these things. Um, Sorry, I'm just talking about school in general here. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about too. School in general at this point right now, and the protection of schools and I mean, look how easy it is to access a classroom, to access a school. You just walk right up in the classroom. All that stuff need to be locked up and fenced off. And all they got to do is, I don't think it would be a bad idea to have guns on campus, like as far as teachers and staff or security. Um, and, what else I was gonna say? Forgot what else I was gonna say. But I don't know what you guys think about that. Like, what do you think is the best thing to do after this situation like this? And then look, the news people are sitting there telling us it's gonna happen again. It's only gonna get worse. I don't know how they know that, but I think we should take that into consideration if the news people are saying it. That man said it's gonna happen again. It's only gonna get worse. I've kind of had a day dealing with school BS, so I'm kind of mad about schools today.
Evidence, every shell casing, they're going to.
As a former preschool teacher and parent of a disabled or typical child, I have all sorts of problems. All of it. Yeah, I feel you, fam. There's a lot of stuff going on with schools, and like that stuff that happened in Cal City with the boy that they left on a van for 4 hours. That could have easily been a tragedy. And this, like I said, man, these schools is we sending our kids out there, like, to the open world. Sad to say, unfortunately, there's something to think about, man. Shout out to everybody that's in here. We just, talking about this tragic event. Once again, man, prayers to all the victims and the victims' families and, law enforcement and just everybody that has to physically deal with that, man. Um, you could just see the emotions in everybody's face that's dealing with that situation that's there. Um, like they have pictures of like the law enforcement running. You could just see like the concern. So yeah, prayers, man, to everybody that way. Let's get back into this video, y'all.
The trajectory of who was shot, where, and when. And all that's going to go into their final report to understand exactly what happened, help explain this to the victims and the victims' families, and understand what prevention can take place. They're also going to be scrubbing social media and looking for any kind of motive, any sort of intent here. and where there might have been opportunities upstream for preventing this.
Phil, there's nothing that prepares anyone for this type of crime scene. So for law enforcement who are having to process this scene and take in the evidence, when it's children, I can't think of anything worse. And no way can you prepare or be ready for what that means.
It's devastating. Even for those that have trained to run to the sound of gunfire, stumbling upon a scene like this is tormenting, and it will be very difficult on the mental health for these first responders. And they're going to have to take care to recognize that. The departments are going to have to give folks time to debrief this and talk about this, and it's going to have a ripple effect for this community, just like it has for the entire country. Our 212th mass shooting this year. So we are having more than one mass shooting a day. And it's tragic, but it is also time to take some serious look at what can be done to prevent these.
I heard that, fam. 212 mass shootings this year, and we're not even halfway through the year, but we're about to get there at the mark. I only heard about these last three. I only just heard about two of them yesterday. So, where all these other mass shootings, I don't know, but it's happening. You know, according to Fuse Nation. Yeah, I think they did kind of change the what they consider a mass shooting. I think it's like if you shoot more than two people or three people, they consider it a mass shooting. So allegedly, I think so. I heard something like that. To where it's like, it's not like it used to be. Like, it's to a minimum. And they consider it a mass shooting. But that's a lot of mass shootings. 212, not even halfway through the year.
What more can be just schools in general and school security? What's the next step?
Well, I think the next step is really doing everything you can to make sure that dangerous people don't get weapons in the first place. And then once we identify somebody that is a danger to themselves or others, that we have the tools for removing the weapons until they're stabilized. And some states have those tools, some states don't. We also want to take a look at who we allow access to guns in the first place. Texas took a bold move in 2012 and lowered the age for access to handguns, which facilitated, a sale here at 18. You can hear this from any social scientist about, juvenile brain development, that the brain's not even fully developed till 26. And you were taking a lot of risk with giving guns to folks who are not stable mentally and youth that haven't had fully developed brains when they're not using guns in controlled circumstances.
Hey, Phil, I want to talk to you a little bit about sort of these minutes that turn into hours or seconds that turn into hours when this happened. A timeline, shooter gets these weapons in his home, shoots his grandmother, drives to the school. We don't know why he got to the school or we picked this school, and then went in and began shooting and killing. To kill 21 people takes at least a bit of time. And I'm thinking back to the lessons from Columbine: go in, don't have the perimeter outside, and the like. What do you make of the timeline that we saw? What does it tell you about watching this video, for example, of the shootout between law enforcement and the suspect?
That seconds matter.
Highway patrol.
And the position that somebody's in makes a big difference in the level of mayhem that they can deliver. Law enforcement was in relative hot pursuit of this person, and you've got to give them a lot of credit for how quickly they responded. But seconds matter. And in this case, given the weapons that he had, that the other reports that
They hot today. They're going another highway patrol. Jeez. That's why I be doing the speed limit.
Phil, before we let you go, I can't think of anything worse than these families waiting to.
All right, so yeah, that's the part I was kind of waiting on. So they was in pursuit of the boy already, and just that fast, he was still able to do what he did. No, I'm not knocking law enforcement. I'm just saying that's just crazy. That's crazy as hell. So yeah, I guess he was already they was already on the lookout for him. I guess for what he did to his grandmother. Let's take that back. Let's double check on that.
Gets these weapons in his home, shoots his grandmother, drives to the school. We don't know why he got to the school, or we picked this school. And
take it back a little bit, y'all.
Next step is really doing everything you can to make sure that dangerous people don't get weapons in the first place. And then once we identify somebody that is a danger to themselves or others, that we have the tools for until they're stabilized. And some states have those tools, some states don't. We also want to take a look at who we allow access to guns in the first place. Texas took a bold move in 2012 and lowered the age for access to handguns, which facilitated, a sale here at 18. You can hear this from any social scientist about, juvenile brain development, that the brain's not even fully developed till 26. And you were taking a lot of risk with giving guns to folks who are not stable mentally and youth that haven't had fully developing brains when they're not using guns in controlled circumstances.
Hey, Phil, I want to talk to you a little bit about sort of these minutes that turn into hours or seconds that turn into hours when this happened. A timeline, shooter gets these weapons in his home, shoots his grandmother, drives to the school. We don't know why he got to the school, or we picked this school, and then went in and began shooting and killing. To kill 21 people takes at least a bit of time. And I'm thinking back to the lessons from Columbine: go in, don't have the perimeter outside, and the like. What do you make of the timeline that we saw? What does it tell you? This video, for example, of the shootout between law enforcement and the suspect?
That seconds matter, and the type of weapon and the position that somebody's in makes a big difference in the level of mayhem that they can deliver. Law enforcement was in relative hot pursuit of this person, and you got to give them a lot of credit for how quickly they responded. But seconds matter, and in this case, given the weapons that he had, that the reports that he was wearing protective armor, and the close access that he had to the children contributed to the level of mayhem.
Phil, before we let you go, I can't think of anything worse than these families waiting to hear the news about their children, and the DNA testing at a crime scene like this. Is that standard? Is that something that you would expect to see happen? And is there any other way?
Unfortunately, given the type of weapon that was used and the rounds that weapon fires, the devastation that it causes at close range could contribute to a lot of confusion in the identification of these children. So I think this is unusual in this circumstance, but this is an unusual attack, given that it is an elementary school. We don't see that very often. There have been a handful of these kinds of attacks, and the type of weapon used both contribute to making that a difficult case. And I think also trying to prevent these families from having to do a in-person identification.
that in and of itself is a pretty devastating thing to ask them to do. And I think DNA is a logical way of moving around that.
Wow, that's just crazy. That's crazy what this boy did to these kids. I don't want to go back over them details, but if you guys heard them details, then you could kind of like just they're not able to identify some of the kids. So that's
Phil, thank you. It's overwhelming. And Leland, it was just 2 days left of the school year before these kids were headed off for summer vacation. The pool in Uvalde was going to open up this weekend for Memorial Day weekend in the heat of the summer, to give family a time for respite and to enjoy. This was supposed to be a time for fun.
And there are so many families tonight thinking about what would have been, what could have been, and spend the rest of their life doing that. One thing that had struck me when we listened to Phil, and we'll put the video up real quickly of the shootout once again, for all of the horror and all of the evil and everything that we will be talking about, it is important to remember that out of every one of these stories come incredible acts of heroism of the people who ran towards gunfire, be it teachers or law enforcement at the school, who put themselves between harm's way and kids. And as we think about the evil, it also does good to remember that there is also true good and true heroes in this world who take on people like that. At the White House, the flags still fly at half-staff this evening in memory. We can obviously expect President Biden to announce at some point that he is going to head to Uvalde and comfort these parents in a way that he can uniquely, both as president and also as a father who has lost children as well.
It was less than a week ago that the president was in New York comforting the victims' families after 10 people were killed inside of a grocery store. The NBA also paid its respects this evening to the victims and their families in Uvalde.
Our thoughts and prayers are also with the victims of the horrific shooting today at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. We mourn with their families and friends and the entire community after this unspeakable tragedy. Thank you.
all right, fam. That's pretty much it for that video. I still got a little bit till I go to work. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop by this park. Yeah, we could chop it up a little bit, talk about what's going on. I'm gonna go back through the comments and talk to my solidified folks in here. Once again, man, tragic situation. Prayers, prayers, prayers for the victims' family, law enforcement, just everybody that has to physically deal with this, because this is something that's gonna be on their soul and mind for life. And I can't just imagine being any one of them folks, from the parent, definitely the parents for sure, but down to anybody else, even just a resident in that city is going to be affected forever. And it's not really, it's a lot to say, but not too much to say, because we all feel the same, I just really feel bad for everybody, man. And it sucks. It really sucks that a motherfucker would do some senseless shit like that. And of course, we ain't never gonna understand. I know I would never understand why somebody would do something like that. Now it was like, my mom was telling me some alleged rumors about the boy, which doesn't make no excuse. But I don't even know. I've been trying to find that information to where they're talking about him. But I don't know if he was bullied or, a troublemaker. But we finna find out right now. We finna try to see what information they got on him. Speechless, and I don't really want to speak on it until I have made sure that I've caught all of the accurate, up to date information. Yeah, what that video right there, that was I'm gonna tell you exactly when that came out. I know for sure that's the last one from News Nation. Let's see. Yeah, that one was dropped 11 hours ago. But once I stop right here at this park, we'll see, what updated information that they have. I didn't catch if they caught him or he unalived himself. Or yeah, they killed him. He fired shots at the law enforcement too, but they eventually gunned him down. He had body armor on too. But one thing for certain, two things for sure. It's so is up for question. We all know that. I don't even think it's a question on that. Like, pretty much know where he should be. One thing God says, don't play with his children. Play with God's kids. So if it is a such thing as eternal fire, pretty sure that's where that man is at. Hold on, you guys. As soon as I park, we're gonna get back into it. Trying to find some shade. All right, you guys. Can you guys hear my AC? Is it like too loud? Nobody said nothing, so I think we're good. Now you good, day one. You got any questions in regard to the video? Any more questions? Shout out to everybody that's in here. TN's Furniture, my day one, Carol Smith, Sandra, Stephanie. I know I seen information here earlier. Um, For all my members, I still need y'all information on the shirts. Nobody sent me no information yet. I don't want no shirts. It's cool. Marcy, you can't sit here, loser. I wasn't calling Marcy a loser. That's the name of somebody on here in the comment section. Tell you about some of these YouTube names, man. I found Rayshawn on Ernie live one night. Happy to be subscribed here. Oh, thank you. That's so sweet of you. Shout out to Ernie though, man, for all the peoples that he sent over here. And glad y'all enjoying the channel. I think she's talking about Ernie, day one. Ernie Shell, right? Yes.
Out the investigation. New details about the gunman and the safe security measures in the Uvalde School District. Our chief national correspondent, Matt Gutman, is outside the gunman's home. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, Michael. That rampage began in that house just behind me. The suspect allegedly shooting his grandmother first. Now, law enforcement officials tell me that the suspect purchased both of those AR-style rifles just 2 days before the shooting legally. The investigation now focusing on whether he had accomplices and whether this was pre-planned in any ways and how the suspect managed to slip through all of the guardrails in place in this community meant to stop an attack just like this. This morning, authorities telling ABC News the shooter legally purchased 2 AR variant long guns within a week of his 18th birthday.
What happened in Uvalde is a horrific tragedy that cannot be tolerated in the state of Texas.
His classmates at Uvalde High School telling ABC News the suspect was known for fighting and threatening classmates. Nathan Romo, who had witnessed part of the shooting, had once been friends with him. What did you do to prompt him to say, "I'll kill you"?
Nothing. I used to be his friend, but then I told him that I was gonna start being his friend no more because he was being weird with not only me but a lot of other people.
Several classmates telling us the suspect rarely went to school, and when he did, he sometimes frightened students like Ureli Vasquez.
He had scars on his face, and I remember somebody asking him what happened, are you okay? Because he showed up to school with them, and he just straight out told them, with a smile, I did it myself because I like how it looks.
Vasquez had also worked with him at a restaurant. Now investigators working to determine how and when the gunman assembled his arsenal, which included AR-15s, body armor, and numerous magazines.
So what we do know, when he did make entry into the school and he was shooting children and adults and teachers, we did have several police officers that made entry and actually were met with gunfire by the suspect.
Authorities saying he shot his grandmother before he headed to Robb Elementary School and unleashed that deadly assault. That school, part of a district with robust security measures in place, including lockdown protocols, threat assessment teams, and a digital program to monitor social media threats. But the shooter allegedly leaving a trail of disturbing social media posts, hinting at an attack. Investigators now poring over the gunman's accounts, where he reportedly sent videos and photos of guns to other users, even images of animal abuse. As recently as Tuesday morning, an Instagram account believed to be connected to the shooter, sending a photo of a gun laying on a bed to another user. Law enforcement also reviewing screenshots of messages the suspect allegedly sent a different Instagram user, tagging them in an image of firearms. And then the day before the shooting, the gunman also reportedly saying on the platform Yubo, "Wait till tomorrow." Now a community searching for answers. I just spoke with the suspect's grandfather, who said he had.
What is Yubo? Anybody in here know what Yubo is? So basically seemed like he was already trying to give out hints. And I mean, it's still, it's still kind of hard to prevent something like that. Anybody know what Yubo is? Well, of course, it's a social media, but I never heard of it.
his those guys. Grandfather saying he's a felon, so it's illegal for him to have those weapons in. If he had known it, he would have turned him in. He also says his grandson didn't have a license to drive, couldn't drive, and he wonders who took him to purchase those weapons and whether he was able even to practice on them. Robin.
Many of us are wondering that. All right, Matt, thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking.
I believe I heard Yubo is a social media platform, but I never seen it. Yeah, I heard him say that, but I was just asking if anybody like heard of it. I know on my end I haven't. Another thing I'm kind of curious about is like where did this boy get this income for all this to buy 2 assault rifles, ammunition, and also body armor? I think that would be at least. I mean, I don't know the prices in Texas, but I would say for all that at least like $2,000. I don't know if this boy had a job or not, but just say he wasn't employed. That's a somewhat of a lot of money. Somewhat of a lot of money for a little boy to have. An 18-year-old teenager that's not not employed, unless he was doing other things in the streets. Like it is ways to make money. Don't get me wrong, but it's something I was curious about. Do I think he planned this out for attention? Um, Honestly, right now at this moment, no. It just sounds like he really had issues, and it just sounds like yeah, I don't know, some type of issues, something going on in his life to make him feel this type of way. I don't think it was for attention though. Hold on, phone call, you guys. All right, fam. I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. They seriously need to put a very basic program on all these social media platforms that when gun pictures are posted, somebody's alerted or something happens. Yeah, you already think. I'm pretty sure they have something like that in place already, but they need to enforce it a lot more. That man that tried to attack Dave Chappelle said he was inspired by Will Smith for copycat. When was this? I didn't hear about that one. Wow, that is what I thought I heard, and they weren't like massive alarm bells ringing after he did that to himself. Wow, just wow. No, I didn't hear about that.
Thinking about getting home and then
I guess they got a press conference. The governor. I'm gonna go ahead and slap that on real quick, you guys. I mean, it's still live. Let's see if we.
There were 3 officers who were injured who are all remain in good condition. 1 deputy sheriff lost a daughter in that school.
Oh wow.
Before coming out here, we had a long discussion with law enforcement at all levels. We had a discussion with
This is live, you guys.
leaders, elected officials. And
I gotta make a little
I
script
asked
real quick, so we just gonna have to
the
listen.
sheriff and others an open-ended question and got the same answer from the sheriff as well as from the mayor of Uvalde. The question was, what is the problem here? And they were straightforward and emphatic. They said, we have a problem with mental health illness in this community. And then they elaborated on the magnitude of the mental health challenges that they're facing in the community and the need for more mental health support in this region. I want to make sure everybody understands the mental health services that are available at this time. With me making one clarifying point in advance that I'm going to redouble down in the aftermath. Whenever anything as shocking and extraordinary and disturbing as this event occurs, there is an urgent need for everybody affected to access mental health. I cannot be more emphatic than saying with great urgency, everybody in this community, I mean everybody, the victims, the families, family members, friends, the law enforcement involved, but the entire community is in utter shock about this. Some physical wounds that were sustained by the officers, they're going to heal in the coming days. The mental and emotional wounds are far harder to see and last far longer. The state of Texas, working with federal and local officials and agencies, we're going to be here for a long, long time. And one key point that we will focus on is making sure that everybody in this community has the access they need for as long as they need it to address with the mental and emotional healthcare needs that they have. I want to list the various agencies and make sure these are made available to the public. The mental health services currently available are from victim services from across the area from federal, state, and local levels, including the Family Resource Center at the Uvalde County Fairplex. Schools have crisis teams at the Uvalde Civic Center. They provide wraparound services for families who are affected. The Texas Child Mental Health Consortium, created by the state legislature in 2019, is available to assist. The Bluebonnet Children's Advocacy Center is available to provide services for children. The Texas Health and Human Services Commission is on site and will be available for ongoing provision of services. The Texas Education Agency is providing supplemental counseling services. The Texas Department of Public Safety Counseling is providing counseling services for law enforcement. And the FBI is also bringing in mental health services for law enforcement. It cannot be overemphasized the importance of law enforcement officers, all of them, seeking out and obtaining this mental health counseling. The District Attorney's Office for Victim Services has a phone number available for all victims, and candidly, the entire community, in a way, is a victim here. And I was provided their number to give out to you publicly. This is the number for the District Attorney's Office for Victim Services. The number is 830. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Sit down. You're out of line and an embarrassment. Sit down.
Oh wow.
No, this isn't the place to talk this over. This is totally predictable. Sir, you're out of line. Sir, you're out of line. Sir, you're out of line. Please leave this auditorium. I can't believe you're a sick son of a bitch that would come to a deal like this to make a political issue.
Yeah, you want me to come in? So we're following some developments here at this news conference here in Uvalde right now. That is Beto O'Rourke, who is telling the governor of Texas right now another shooting is going to happen, essentially putting the onus on the governor and the leadership in Texas right now, confronting him face to face at this news conference over the killings that happened at this elementary school. We should mention Beto O'Rourke is also running for office here in the state of Texas, statewide office. He is being escorted out right now by police. A stunning moment here, around 24 hours after the shooting just occurred. Back and forth there in the hall. We were about to hear from the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick. And it appears there are other protesters inside.
There are family members. There are family members who are crying as we speak. They're family members whose hearts are broken. There's no words that anybody shouting can come up here and do anything to heal those broken hearts. We all, every Texan, every American has a responsibility where we need to focus not on ourselves and our agendas. We need to focus on the healing and hope that we can provide to those who have suffered unconscionable damage to their lives and loss of life. We need all Texans to, in this one moment in time, put aside personal agendas, think of somebody other than ourselves, think about the people who were hurt, and help those who have been hurt. And this time, Lieutenant Governor will speak. I was just about to say that there will be plenty of time to discuss and analyze what happened yesterday and do everything that we can within our power to hopefully prevent it from happening again. But now is the time, people watching around the world, in this country, in this state, to focus on these families, as the governor just said. Right now, we need to put our arms around the families of these victims, the students and the teachers. This is not a partisan issue. This is not a political issue. This is an unimaginable moment that will impact the lives of those who lost their children and those who survived. The adults and the teachers, the men and women of law enforcement who were there. We are better than this as a country. We are better than this. These types of crimes, and you see children killed, go to the very core of all of us who have children or grandchildren. We can't imagine the pain that these families are going through. We saw it 4 years ago in Santa Fe. So can we not be a nation that can stand together for at least
a day or a week or a month. My gosh, to put these families first and everything else second. My gosh, you know, we live in a time. I said this yesterday when there's throats everywhere we turn, whether it's on the internet or an Oscar stage or two coaches arguing, or in the political world or the media world. Who are we as an American people? Who are we? We all have to do our part. All do our part to make us a better people and a better nation. Evil will always walk among us. And in times like this, I've seen it. The governor's seen it. The speaker's seen it. The senators have seen it. The attorney general's seen it. In these other shootings, Sutherland Springs, El Paso, Odessa, Santa Fe, it's God that brings a community together. It's God that heals a community. It's God that heals a shattered and broken heart. And if we don't turn back as a nation to understanding what we were founded upon and what we were taught by our parents and what we believe in, then these situations will only get worse and happen more often. So no matter what your thoughts are today, pray for these families, pray for this community. Give us wisdom. Give us wisdom. But right now, let's focus on the families.
Thanks.
They deserve that.
So,
They need our love. They need our prayers. Thank you, Governor.
And now the Speaker of the House, Dave Phelan.
Thank you, Governor. I appreciate it. Mayor, I'm sorry you had to witness that outburst. Now is not the time to politicize pain and suffering. This time of year should be the happiest time in a child's life. Summertime, getting out of school, enjoying your family and your friends. And instead, this community is faced with an unspeakable tragedy of which there are no words. There are no words to ease the pain and suffering and the anger in this community. I do want to reiterate what the governor said about the mental health of this community. This will take many, many years of pain and suffering and counseling. And your mental health is like any other health. It must be treated. It must be diagnosed. It must be talked about. And the legislature, when we reconvene, we will have a long, very robust discussion about mental health like we always have, and we'll continue to support mental health in this state, and especially rural mental health. Like the sheriff said, like the mayor said, every community has mental health needs, and they must be addressed. This crisis is another reiteration of a mental health crisis we have in this state. I also want to thank the law enforcement for their work, DPS, Border Patrol, sheriffs, police officers, both locally in the school district. I believe one school district's police officer lost his wife in the shooting, was there on the scene. And the governor mentioned sheriff's deputy losing a child in that building as well. Just unspeakable tragedy to this whole community. And the mental health of our law enforcement is crucial in these times. And it's okay for them to say something's wrong as well. I do my deer hunting here in Uvalde County. It's a beautiful community with beautiful people. And all we can say is how tragic this is, and the support this state will show and will continue to show. And we just appreciate your resiliency, and let us know how we can help here at the state of Texas.
Thank you. And now the Director of the Texas Department of Public Safety, Steve Mccraw.
Thank you, Governor. On behalf of the sheriff, chiefs of police, the department's been asked to go through a timeline of the facts. As we know, the investigation right now is preliminary, this information, but we'll provide as much information as we can. First, as already reported, Salvador Ramos was responsible for the horrific attack and killing of 19 school-age children and 2 adults. He's 18 years old, as previously reported. He was dropped out of school. He had no criminal history that we've been able to find or detect at this particular point. He lived with his grandmother, Celia, who is 66 years old. On March 17th, Ramos purchased a semi-automatic rifle at a local sporting goods store. On March 18th, he purchased 375 rounds of ammunition for that rifle. On March 20th, he purchased another semi-automatic rifle at that same local store. The FBI has been able to find information on his Facebook account that the governor he provided new information on. At approximately 11 o'clock, he announced, on Facebook, a message that he was going to shoot his grandmother. He shot his grandmother. He re-reported that he had shot her. And after that, he reported that he was going to a school to attack it. Now, he didn't identify the specific school. He did say elementary at that point in time. But the timeline is it went from 11 to 11:30. His mother reported him to the police department.
All right, sorry about that, you guys. I'm gonna run in the store real brief, and we're gonna double back on that. So we're gonna be a little bit late, like a few seconds late on the live, but I want to hear that part again. I'll be right back. Give me 30 seconds, now. Right, so all right. Oh, we still got 9 people up in here. Let's get back to this real quick because I don't want to get too far behind on this live.
This this state will show and will continue to show, and we just appreciate your resiliency.
So it's still live. We just you said like a minute behind, minute or two.
Can help.
Thank you. And now the Director of the Texas Department of Public Safety, Steve Mccraw.
Thank you, Governor. On behalf of the sheriff and chiefs of police, the department's been asked to go through a timeline of the facts. As we know, the investigation right now is preliminary, this information, but we'll provide as much information as we can. First, as already reported.
All right, so you guys pay attention. This is the most updated information right now. A lot of information right here that's about to come out.
Rhombus. Killing of 19 school-age children and 2 adults. He's 18 years old, as previously reported. He was dropped out of school. He had no criminal history that we've been able to find or detect at this particular point. He lived with his grandmother, Celia, who is 66 years old. On March 17th, Ramos purchased a semi-automatic rifle at a local sporting goods store. On March 18th, he purchased 375 rounds of ammunition for that rifle.
375 rounds. Last I heard, it was a drought on bullets. Crazy.
Another semi-automatic rifle at that same local store. The FBI has been able to find information on his Facebook account that the governor he provided you information on. At approximately 11 o'clock, he announced, on Facebook, a message that he was going to shoot his grandmother. He shot his grandmother. He re-reported that he had shot her. And after that,
Wow, so he posted this on Facebook. In this small city, and that's crazy. That's sad that nobody was able to catch that.
School. He didn't identify the specific school. He did say elementary at that point in time. But the timeline is anywhere from 11 to 11:30. His mother reported him to the police department, and she was able to run across the street to a neighbor and get help. And she was medevaced to San Antonio in critical condition at this point, but she's still alive. The subject, Ramos, at that point in time, used her vehicle, his grandmother's vehicle. He was living at their residence since March of 2022. Used her vehicle to drive approximately 2.29 miles, which is about a block and a half away from the school, Robb Elementary School. He crashed the vehicle at that point in time. He exited with a backpack. He took a rifle with him, one rifle. It was a Daniel Defense that he had previously purchased, I had mentioned. He went towards the west side of the campus, which is a back door. But as he was approaching, as the governor mentioned earlier, there was a brave Consolidated Independent School District resource officer that approached him, engaged him, and at that time, gunfire was not exchanged, but the subject was able to make it into the school, as the governor reported. He went down a hallway, turned right, then turned left, and there was 2 classrooms that were adjoining, and that's where the carnage began. As he was shooting, when the shooting began, we had Uvalde police officers arrive on scene, along with the Consolidated Independent School District officers, immediately breached, because as we know in officers, every second's a life. They breached it, engaged the active shooter, and continued to keep him pinned down in that location, afterwards, until after a tactical team could be put together, comprised of Border Patrol agents on the front end, some members of their BORTAC unit, which is a SWAT team for Border Patrol. Also, there was a Zavala County deputy that got into the stack, and 2 Uvalde police officers. They breached the classroom door. They went in, they engaged Ramos and killed him at the scene. That covers it, Governor. One thing I'd like to say, though, and you hit the nail on the head, is that And profession of law enforcement, it is a profession. You know, what looks right and how we measure ourselves is the absence of crime and disorder. Obviously, this is a situation we failed in the sense that we didn't prevent this mass attack. But I can tell you those officers that arrived on the scene and put their lives in danger, they saved other kids. They kept them pinned down. And we're very proud of that. At the same time, we're always looking to get better and look at anything that might have been out there. We've yet to find a clue, whether it's social media or other indicators that might have given us any type of idea that he was about to do something like this. It gives an opportunity to prevent it because, as we know, the overriding priority of you, certainly the legislature in Texas and the people of Texas, is that it's all about prevention. You know, prevent the next mass attack. And thank you for your leadership, Speaker and Lieutenant Governor. Thank you.
Thank you. And now the superintendent for the Consolidated Independent School District, Al Harrell.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for your support. Team coming and speaking to us and providing the services and resources that you have. As superintendent, I could never imagine a day like yesterday. Into school, award ceremonies, the time of a second, third, or fourth grader's life at that point. It was a senseless and tragic event, and this is heartbreaking. It really is. We have had a lot of support here from our community, surrounding counties, surrounding districts, and all over the state. And I appreciate you for thinking of us and sending that support. I have to relay the heartbreak of our teachers at Robb campus. I met with them this morning, but as I looked across that room, there was a group of heroes in that room. If it weren't for them, along with the law enforcement that came, that were willing to cradle their kids, get them out of the classroom when it was safe, when they were guided, and the trust our kids had in their teachers, that says volumes for our staff here in Uvalde. They are heroes. They did heroic things yesterday, and they are always very humble, but they are truly humble heroes. Yesterday, we lost 2 teachers. These 2 teachers, I would say, are the cornerstone of that campus to some great degree. They're 2 beautiful souls. They have taught on that campus for many years. They have kids in our district, and they poured their heart and soul into what they did in educating our kids in Uvalde. 19 students, 19 precious students who came to school yesterday to enjoy the day, to enjoy the award assembly. And as I look at their pictures, you can just tell by their angelic smile that they were loved, they loved coming to school, and they were just precious individuals. This is a difficult time for everybody. We are hurting. We have been cut deep here in our community. We will move forward. It's going to take some time moving forward. But our faith has been shaken. We ask you to continue to pray for these families, these kids. Pray for our community, and we will move forward. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. I'll take a few questions. So the ability of an 18-year-old to buy a long gun has been in place in the state of Texas for more than 60 years. And think about during the time over the course of that 60 years, we have not had episodes like this. And why is it that for the majority of those 60 years, we did not have school shootings? And why is it that we do now? The reality is, I don't know the answer to that question. However, what I do know in talking to the leaders here as well as leaders in other locations around the state. And that is one thing that has substantially changed is the status of mental health in our communities. What I do know is this, and that is we as a state, we as a society need to do a better job with mental health. Anybody who shoots somebody else has a mental health challenge, period. We as a government need to find a way to target that mental health challenge and do something about it. Director Mccraw will have the best information on that.
We're in the process of doing the crime scene right now. First one being the school, second being the vehicle, and third, the grandmother's residence. I can tell where it's a detailed process. So I can't answer that, but for right now, we believe that all the children were shot and killed by Ramos.
Some sort of danger, maybe not study.
We did see some, and I think one was of a concern, and that concern was, relayed to allegedly, we haven't confirmed it yet, to someone in California who didn't report it. And we're in the process of working with the FBI right now to make sure she's interviewed and find out more about it. There may be other clues out there right now that we're not aware of. This is a preliminary part of the investigation, and we're going to scour everything that what could have indicated in some way, shape, or form that this individual was a threat to the community. None at all. In fact, this is, we're astounded as at the beginning of the investigation because there's usually something out there, but right now, it is as that reported on the timeline. If we find out something else, we'll provide that information.
What more can be done to assist with the operationalize these threats that the plan?
So I'm going to answer in part, but we also have the TEA Commissioner, Mike Mcfarland, with us, who may be able to shed additional light. But here's the information that we know, and you pointed out SB 11. Listen, as you know, but others may not. People need to understand that in the aftermath of the Santa Fe shooting, I signed 17 laws to address school safety. And one of them dealt with threat assessment and preparation for threat assessment. And there are certain standards that schools are required to comply with to make sure that they are addressing threat assessments. I have no information as we speak at this particular time about the status of this particular elementary school or the ISD about what the status was concerning threat assessments. However, to make sure that your broader question is answered sufficiently, Mike, you want to come up? The person coming up is Mike Mcfarland, who is the commissioner for the Texas Education Agency.
So there's significant appropriations provided to ensure that the local school systems around the state have resources for this. One of the components of Senate Bill 11 was a school safety allotment. There was additional upfront funding for that. The Texas School Safety Center and our agency work in collaboration to provide technical assistance and training to school district leaders, counseling team leaders, others, to ensure that the threat assessment protocols and these procedures, including threat response plans, the operational multi-hazard plans, are practiced on a recurring basis. So there have been essentially fairly significant efforts to bolster those managerial practices and these detective or preventative practices in schools all over the state of Texas. We will continue to do more. After any incident like this, of course, you reflect on lessons learned to ensure that we can prevent this kind of a situation in schools going forward.
Yeah.
if I can just add to
One
that.
second. I'll call on you next. 1 second.
If I can just add to that briefly, in 19, the House and Senate worked together, put $100 million into trying to give the schools all the tools that they needed to try and protect the students. The Marshals program, the Guardian program to arm teachers where schools wanted. We left a lot of those programs optional up to the parents and the school boards and the school districts. And they're doing the best they can. And you're always going to have, again, no matter what you do, there's going to be someone to find another area that's vulnerable. But the legislature did act. The governor signed those bills, but we can and need to do more. And in the area of mental health, we've also been working on that as well, but need to do more. We've got to, in our smaller schools where we can get down to one entrance might be one of those solutions. If you'd taken 3 more minutes to find an open door, police were there pretty quickly. But this school district has been doing a really good job in trying to protect their students. And those teachers died yesterday protecting their students. And this is a continued work for us.
Good.
Does that include the NRA commission here speaking on Friday?
So first, with regard to yesterday, I was actually in Taylor County responding to a different disaster, a disaster of fires that had ripped through Taylor County and destroyed 20 homes. And that is when I learned about the shooting that took place pretty much at that time here. On the way back to Austin, I stopped and let people know that I could not stay, that I needed to go, and I wanted them to know what happened and get back to Austin so that I could continue my collaboration with Texas law enforcement to make sure that all the needs were being met here in the Uvalde area. As far as future plans are concerned, listen, I'm living moment to moment right now. My heart, my head, and my body are in Uvalde right now, and I'm here to help the people who are hurting.
I can't. It's going to be within a minute, like 40 minutes or something, with an hour. But I don't want to give you a particular timeline. But bottom line is that law enforcement was there. They did engage immediately. They did contain them in the classroom, and they put a tactical stack together, in a very orderly way, and of course breached and assaulted the individual. The initial engagement? No, I mean, it was just, it confronted him and wanted to find out, because he see the report, heard the accident without trying to check on that particular crash when he saw it. So he followed him right in immediately, okay, and when rounds were exchanged. And of course, then also we had 2 Uvalde police officers previously described that went in and was involved in also the shooting with the subject and were wounded. And of course, they were also responsible for containing in that area.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I don't know where it was in the community, but obviously in the Uvalde area, because they got there so quickly and in force. And of course, I'll let them answer that question. But they were there in force, and of course, they were importantly, they had some members of their tactical team there on the Vortex team, and they took the lead on that stack. But I'll defer to, I think I have a Border Patrol uniform.
Thank you. So first off, the U.S. Border Patrol Del Rio sector has a station in Uvalde. So we have about 150 or so agents that are permanently assigned to Uvalde. We also have several agents in other stations that choose to live here in this community as well. So we had folks that came from off duty. We had folks that came from training. We had folks that were in the field and responded. So a multitude, some 80 in total, Border Patrol agents responded. So as to where that particular individual came from, don't have that yet. The investigation will bear out, but we have a large presence
permanently here in Uvalde.
Did you
I'm not going to release his name just yet.
go ahead? We began talking about it in there. I'll just tell you one thing that we talked about, which is something we've heard in some other regions of Texas also, and that is in approximately maybe as much as a 40 county region around the area where we gather right now. There is no mental health hospital, and there's a shortage of beds for mental health in this region. If someone is suicidal, if someone has a mental health problem, they oftentimes would have to go to some place like San Antonio. And with the growing population in this region, with the profound mental health challenges that were discussed with us, one takeaway I had was that there is a greater need for a physical mental health care facility in this region. But we know that buildings don't treat people, people treat people. And so there needs to be more personnel, more strategies, a greater understanding by the mental health care provider community about what the needs are, and they will be best equipped to know the best way to provide, or let's say meet those needs. Bottom line is this, and that is, I think it's a fair statement, that legislative leaders understand about health challenges in the more rural settings in the state of Texas, and we have a genuine commitment to help address those mental health care challenges. It's one of those issues that was widely discussed in the last several sessions, in particular in the 2019 session. And pretty much every issue was raised by one legislator or another about potential ways to address shootings like this. And the consensus arose around those 17 bills that I did sign, that they hardened schools, they made schools safer, they addressed mental health, and issues like that were the solutions that were agreed upon by legislators at that time. And that is going to be the similar approach that I perceive legislators will continue to focus on. We consider that what we did in 2019 to be one of the most profound legislative sessions, not just in Texas, but we've seen in any state in addressing school shootings. That said, to be clear, we all understand our work is not done. Our work must continue. And we will continue to discuss with legislators about all the potential avenues and pathways that we can take to make sure that schools will be even safer going forward. And I know people like to try to oversimplify this. Let's talk about some real facts. And that is, there are, quote, real gun laws in Chicago. There are, quote, real gun laws in New York. There are real gun laws in California. I hate to say this, but there are more people who were shot every weekend in Chicago than there are in schools in Texas. And we need to realize that people who think that, well, maybe if we could just implement tougher gun laws, it's going to solve it. Chicago and LA and New York disprove that thesis. And so if you're looking for a real solution, Chicago teaches that what you're talking about is not a real solution. Our job is to come up with real solutions that we can implement. So the last thing first, and that is all together, we allocated more than $600 million, so more than $500 million to address school safety. As it concerns the first parts of your question, the answer is with the laws that we passed in 2019, which is 3 years ago, all those measures that you were talking about were included in those laws. Let me give you several examples. An entire platform that was addressed is what's called school hardening or hardening schools. Some of those strategies reduce the number of entrances. Other strategies provide things like school marshals or having DPS officers or others fill out their paperwork in schools so that there will be a law enforcement presence in schools. They involve different types of strategies that will should make it more difficult for a shooter to get into a school. That said, I can tell you what we all agree upon. We're all going to go back and look at both exactly what was passed, any shortcoming in what was passed, any shortcoming in implementation. I want you to know also that included in those laws were requirements by school districts across the state of Texas to work with the School Safety Commission to make sure that all the strategies would be used and employed and tested, including active shooter strategies for schools to be ready, to be prepared to employ as needed. And so, yes, from pretty much every angle, it was debated. And let me go back in time. This is something where I began working up the governor's plan to respond to this a year in advance. And legislators had an entire year to be looking at that, to be debating that, to be getting prepared for that. Then I made it an emergency item during the session, which meant that everyone was going to be focusing on it, and they did. So my point in saying that, and that is that this took the time, effort, and mental involvement of all legislators during the course of that session to put what they consider to be the best solutions on the table. Many of them were adopted, some were not, but we adopted what we consider to be the best plans that session. Again, we will always, and especially in this coming session, evaluate what more needs to be done in our schools to make them even safer.
All right, you guys, I'm gonna start wrapping it up. I gotta head out, to work in a few. Um, they pretty much put out most of the information that they already know. Like they said, it's preliminary part of the investigation, which is just meaning the beginning process. So, they still trying to process information and gather things together. But with all these agencies involved, they're gonna most likely, interview anybody that's connected to this boy or connected to his social media, just on the fact of trying to figure out his motive, besides the things that's obvious, which, like the man said earlier, anybody that kills somebody has a mental health issue, especially if it's not in self-defense. Uh, just a random act like this is definitely mental health. Something mentally has to be wrong with you for you to do something like this, especially on that caliber right there, let alone just kill one person for nothing. There's different type of souls. It's back to the topic that, it's evil out there. us good people is not gonna like really realize that because we're good-hearted people, but everybody's not like that, unfortunately. And obviously, once again, man, prayers. That's pretty much all we could do is keep them prayers alive for these families and these victims, and it's a lot of trauma that they're gonna have to go through for the rest of their life. You only could imagine what any of these folks is going through. Just like just law enforcement having to see them bodies and things of that nature, and the families and so forth and so forth. Um, yeah, no problem, day one. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate it. Just wanted to, just talk about this. Good thing we caught that live. I was crazy earlier when they got into it. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that part. I don't really know who was down bad in that situation, but that's not even a bigger point right now. But I don't know. One thing I keep catching is they keep saying it's gonna happen again. That's just very concerning. Got to take that into consideration. I know it's only limited things that we can really do. It's not that easy just to go put your children on homeschool, but when it boils down and you just really think about what's really going on, I think it's steps that need to be taken. Then also another thing back on how to protect these schools, I wouldn't think it would be that hard, especially if they already invested millions. I don't know if he said millions or $1 billion into the schools. All it would take is to build a high fence around the perimeter, put some metal detectors in there because you got to worry about some kids too. Somebody posted in the comment section earlier that I think it was Stephanie that had posted it. Oh yeah, and Stephanie, my prayers is with you and your friend. So I seen the comment. I was just, letting the video play out. But I hope everything is all right, man. I hope you get in contact with her too. But I think she had posted about the second grader that had the gun in his desk. So with all these millions of dollars, it doesn't cost that much money to build a fence. I wouldn't think it would cost that much money for metal detectors, and also allow these teachers to have weapons. Um, and it's sad that we got to go through all this precaution just to send our children to school to get education. But my thing is, what these hired folks out there, the government or whatever, man, put the money in the right way to protect these schools. It's all these millions. Where's it going? And you can still walk into a school and do this type of stuff. Build a fence around the perimeter, get some metal detectors, some security, and allow these teachers to have a pistol or something, or just stop school in general and take it back to the virtual school. You know what I mean? Um, it's a sad situation, but hopefully this wakes these folks up, man, and they do something about really protecting our children. Yeah, definitely, day one. Yo, yo, yo. All right, my bad about that. Servers had dropped, you guys. Um, Let me get back to these comments. Let me see. I left your email. You can give my number to day one, etc. Known you all a long time now. Okay, I got you, fam. Why don't we have metal detectors in schools? We have them in so many other places. Aren't our children valuable enough to at least put this safety measure in place? Yeah, fam, that's the fact that I was stressing earlier about, they said they got these millions of dollars in schools for their protection and safety. Like I wouldn't think that it would cost that much to protect these schools. Metal detectors, a fence. I know I said something earlier about like making it like a prison, but you don't even got to do that. A regular school with a tall fence, to where can't nobody enter or exit the premises, and they can't cut through, or it's not that much money to build a fence around a perimeter. I'm pretty sure it's not that much money for metal detectors and some type of school security, armed school security, and allow the teachers to have guns. And it sounds crazy, like I said, should have to go through all this, but we got to understand the times that we live in. This goes a lot of ways, man. It's a lot of prayers that's needed. It's definitely a lot of actions that need to be taken for sure. Because you're right on that. Long gone is why aren't they protecting our kids to the utmost? Like you said, they got it everywhere else. They could protect. They could protect people in prison. Why you can't protect these kids? But yeah, fam, I'm out of here, man. I catch y'all a little bit later. Peace and blessings, man, and prayers to all. Prayers for America. Prayers for Texas. They need to protect schools like they do airports. Yeah, exactly. So many other things out there in the world that's just heavily protected. You can't even freaking let an ant in there. Like, you know what I mean? But why not the schools? I think it's time to stand up, man. Do something. Demand action. But yeah, I'm out of here, y'all. Much love. I'll see y'all later. Y'all be safe out there. And Stephanie, keep me updated and about your folks. Much love, and I hope everything is all right on that end. Prayers, prayers, prayers.